On Sunday, in his first NFL start, rookie Tyler Shough and the New Orleans Saints executed a perfect 54-second touchdown drive. Each individual play, maybe was not perfect, but collectively, those 7 plays created a touchdown drive that was. Let me show you exactly how the Saints did it. I'm Tim. Let's talk Saints. So we're going to jump right into that 2-minute drill, that 54-second touchdown drive in just a second. Want to briefly mention, yes, watched basically the other 59 minutes of the game again on the all 22. And I decided, let's just focus on the 2-minute drive as far as film review is concerned. And the rest of the negative stuff, I'll recap it after without film. So you don't have to rewatch it again because trust me, it was pretty painful to watch again the second time go around as much as it was the first. The other thing briefly mentioned, there is kind of an NFL formula where they can take for a 2-minute drive where you're looking for basically the number of yards per play you need to accomplish the drive and score your touchdown. Um, so basically, it's time remaining divided by yards. It's not worth going into detail uh, the whole nuts and bolts of it. But suffice it to say that when you do the math, the Saints needed about 9 yards of play on that drive to be able to score a touchdown before time ran out. Basically, did it. Wasn't the easiest road. That's why when you look at the individual plays like we're going to do, they may not have been perfect in and of themselves, but once you combined them, you did basically everything right that you could do. Get those 9 yards or so of play, actually closer to 10 in the number of plays they did it in 7. Actually, it was a little over 10. That in my mind goes, well, the drive itself, you reached some measure of perfection to be able to pull that off, especially since you never did anything before or after that drive really to show that you could do it, and then all of a sudden you did it and scored 7 points. So to me, that's a bit of a silver lining. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. So 1st and 10 from our 29, 54 seconds left to go in the half. We open up the 2-minute drill. We start off with a little motion. Johnson had been at the left side of the formation. He's now motioning down to the right side. And they ran with him, indicating it's probably too high, little matchup or straight man underneath. And the thing is, with all 3 of our timeouts, they're they're going to have to play this a little straight up in the sense that the middle of the field, even with a shorter intermediate route, not quite that 8 to 9 yards, 9 yards roughly, we're looking for per play. We can throw a 4-yard pass if they leave the middle open and turn it into a big hitter. So for that reason, you don't have to send everybody to the 9+ mark. They're giving them a little space for a pitch and catch if we want to go short. They plan on making the tackle, but it creates a little space downfield. And both safeties are kind of looking at 2 receivers to give help. The one that has no intermediate help right now is Shaheed, who digs back towards the middle of the field, right at the first down marker. And Shuck's already anticipating he's moving towards that space with the inside position on Shaheed has the inside position on the corner, that space moving towards the hash and gives him a very good pass because Shaheed is able to dig back to that ball, catch it, and get a little separation where he can turn up the field, grab a couple extra yards, and turn it into a 13-yard gain. So now getting a little closer to midfield, they are going to tighten the defense up a little bit. We use a little motion by Johnson again. Pretty much the same concept. They're not moving around as much. So this could be cover 2, cover 3, cover 4, more than likely some type of zone, and they're going to stay in it. And they may get that showing that 4-man front. They could try to do something there with the pressure. But they decide to keep it a straight 4-man. So once again, he's got another clean pocket to deal with. It's cover 4, and he's one-on-one with the corner on the outside. And I just kind of like taking this deep shot, which starting right here, flags could have been thrown for illegal contact. I think it could have been pass interference. The corner knows he's getting burnt by a guy that he can't cover. And if you're going to call McKinstry as tight as you did in the first quarter for that pass interference, there should have been a flag here. We don't get one, but I like the thought concept because without all the grabbing, pushing, and shoving while he's trying to run down the field, there's a very good chance Shaheed can run down this ball. And after that deep shot, again, could have had a flag thrown there, could have had something, should have probably been. So now I think the Rams are looking at it. Look, we're going to have to tighten this up. We're going to have to bring a little more pressure. So they're showing that right here, kind of a single high look, but they have, instead of a base defense you kind of saw in those first two plays, they're going to get a little more creative here because they're like, no, he's had two opportunities to make throws. He picks up 13 on one and is really close to burning us over the top on the second one. So it was simulated pressure. Landman is dropping out. They're going to pick up receivers now. Short kind of got the single high floating back there. They run a little game on the inside. He still has a good pocket. Makes a very nice completion to Johnson right here. Johnson doesn't quite get the 9 you want. It's closer to 8, but you're still moving the change. You're still kind of staying on your schedule and giving yourself a chance. And right after this, we use our second timeout. Forgot to mention we had used our first timeout after the first completion. In a 2-minute drill, everything for the defense is changing at midfield. They're going to tighten up coverages. They're going to play a lot harder. You burn 2 timeouts, so they're a little less concerned about the middle of the field. And you're going to definitely see less of a base defense, and they're going to get a little more creative. So initially, we had 2 receivers and Juwan Johnson on the left side of the formation. He's motioned all the way across the formation and is now the outside pass catcher. They're showing a heavy pressure look, showing single high man. And it's still only a 4-man rush. They run another game on the inside with the defensive tackles kind of twisting around. And this is actually going to cause some pressure. And he's looking downfield, and he kind of feels the pressure. And this is one of the best plays I think he made all day because he steps up in the pocket. It's kind of moving out to his right. This could potentially be a scramble or a run. So the defense is reacting to that. And they lose sight of Chris Olave for a second. And with Shough having his eyes up and realizing where Olave's headed on the move, and that's like a flick of the wrist pass that he hits Olave in stride with. And give credit to Cam Kitchens, their safety down at the bottom of the screen, because he is coming hard to Johnson working up the sideline, who right now is open or about ready to break open if Kitchen doesn't realize it. Immediately recognizes the threat behind him on Olave and is on him before Olave could really get downfield. Because if he doesn't recognize that, and I don't think Olave scores, but he's going to pick up another substantial chunk of yardage because he'll have split Kitchens and the other safety. Definitely gets into the red zone. I'm pretty sure he gets inside the 20. But Olave's fast, so you never know. If he splits him completely, this could have been basically a 50-yard touchdown pass. If not for Kitchens making the play he made, that very well could have happened. Now, after the Olave catch and run, we ran up, spiked the ball. 2 receiver, Juwan Johnson to the left side look that we had been most of this formation. But this time we snap it. We don't actually put anybody in motion. And if you notice, they're still sending forward and they're sending hard, but now they're really backing off into more coverage, trying to stay tight, not really looking for the matchup, zoning up most of this. And Fuaga just gets beat by Brian Young, who's 9 sacks in 8 games at this point, or 7 games. The guy can rush the passer. He gets the best of Fuaga here and leads with the head. This is what they called helmet to helmet roughing the passer, which was a good thing because that's negative 9 yards if the sack holds. And we're probably in a bit of trouble, and we may even having to burn our last time out right here, considering you've got receivers 30 yards down the field at this point that would have to come back, making a spike kind of tough. But the flag kind of bails you out and stops the clock. Not only do you not lose 9 yards, half the distance to the goal, you gain 12 yards. It keeps you ahead of schedule with just a few seconds remaining on the clock. So after the penalties assessed, we're now going to go first and goal or first and 10 from the 12. We've had Olave lined up with Valet down on the bottom of the screen, the offensive right. He is going in motion and creating a trips formation or to the left side with three receivers over there. Actually, two receivers in Juwan Johnson. I think this is another really good play. It's a good play call, play design. I think Shough and the receivers involved, the pass catchers involved, did a great job with the route running and the route concepts. And the offensive line gave it time for it to develop. So at the snap of the ball, they're all left side looks. He takes a quick look to his right at Valet, who's one on one, but not really doing much of anything. But I like the thought of looking that way, kind of freezing those safeties a little bit when he looks back to his left. At this point, with 13 seconds, even with one timeout left in the game, probably most defenses are thinking he's looking for that out route to Shaheed along the sideline, get him a chance to turn it up and get in the end zone or get out of bounds, stop the clock, and see if he can save that timeout and trying to get one more play in. You have Olave break into the back corner of the end zone so he could throw a pass up to that back corner, see if he can hit Olave back there. But Johnson is just kind of settled in space right in the middle of the field. And that's where the ball goes. The near defender's concentrating on Shaheed. He doesn't even realize the ball's been thrown and Johnson's about to catch it. You have two defenders in effect double teaming Olave, trying to take away anything towards the back end of that end zone. So Nate Landman, their middle linebacker, has to go a long way to try to make the play here. And doesn't get squared up, doesn't get settled in, kind of overruns the play a little bit. So he's trying to reach out and tackle Johnson, unable to do it. The Rams did a great job all day of rallying people to make tackles. And they've got two guys here trying to stop Johnson. Johnson Johnson gets a little athletic, gets a little airborne, is able to go over the top into the end zone. Touchdown. Really, really good play. One of the best of the day, I thought, in the passing game. Recapping the rest of the game. Um, let's start with the defense, or pretty much lack thereof. It's a lot of missed tackles. If you're watching it live, you picked up on that real quick. I was going to count them when I was doing review, but full disclosure, I did not watch every second of every single play. I just couldn't do it. I kind of knew what I wanted to go look for, and when you look at it on the defensive side, missed tackles popped. Now, I did go look it up officially. PFF had it at 19 missed tackles without me giving an exact count. I would say that's probably pretty close to accurate. Now, you did have some nice individual plays sprinkled in, but Rams had around 80 offensive plays in that game. The few plays you made were not nearly enough to make a difference in anything. Young and Williams each had a sack. Thought they played pretty decently overall, but it wasn't great, even with their two sacks, and it definitely wasn't enough. Riley and Sanker had a couple pass breakups. Brzee batted a ball at the line of scrimmage. Had a couple pressures when he got really close to the quarterback, but didn't come away with a sack. And by a couple, I mean like two. Um, so you didn't do enough to slow him down, much less stop him. And I said it initially, and I still believe it. They could have hung half 100 on us easily, and if they really wanted to, they didn't take their foot off the accelerator a little bit. If they'd have just kept it pressed down, it could have been worse. I think they could have 2 to 3, maybe 4 more touchdowns up on the board if they wanted to. So there's just not a lot to say there. I mean, you're looking hard to try to come up with, hey, this guy played well, that guy played well, and overall for that amount of plays alone tells you that look, you weren't doing enough. You were barely doing anything, and that's just the impression I had watching the game, and there really wasn't enough on film to change my opinion of that. Moving on to the rest of the offense outside of that one drive, you had no run blocking. You had no running game. I don't even think you really had a commitment to the running game. It didn't feel like it. Now I know you went down quick 7-0, and things started getting out of hand pretty quick, but still, I don't think there was any real desire to do it. I think they were much like the previous game against Tampa Bay. They wanted to throw it more than they wanted to run it, no matter what the game flow was. I just got that impression. And then once it got lopsided, well, obviously the running game just went by the wayside at that point. You only had one run of 4 yard longer than 4 yards. Every run you had was 4 yards or less, except Taysom's 29-yard run, and even that dried up real quick because Moore just I think it was Vilma calling the game, just going kind of got predictable with it, and it was ineffective, largely ineffective after that the first big run. The pass blocking could suddenly get good. And like in that 2 minute drive, as we were looking, there was a lot of clean pockets, and they really, truly, the only one that he had that wasn't was the sack, and the one where he had to step up on that play to make the throw to Olave. Pressure was coming a little bit from the outside, and he just picked it up real quick, and it didn't bother him. Shuck makes a throw, but outside of that, it's sort of like the defense. You have a few spots here and there where you're looking at the offensive line going, can't you do that all game long? Now I get how great that Rams defensive line is, but still, at times you could stonewall them, you can give the pocket, and most of those times when you did it, Shuck was able to do something positive with the ball. But he a lot of pressures, still took some hits, just like Rattler did when he was a starter, and I just don't think that's going anywhere. And um, we're lucky if we don't get a quarterback hurt. I'm more and more I'm feeling that way, just holding my breath, and I don't know, and it's not likely to get any better anytime soon. Now, overall, Shuck, say just rough around the edges. It didn't, but first NFL start, and we all had questions what he could be. The one thing that tells you is we know what he wasn't. He wasn't a guy that was going to come in and be a Jaden Daniels or Bo Nix, one of those guys, day one start and look pretty good. He was going to need some time. And then once he showed up, what was he going to look like? So I think it was rough overall, would be the way to describe it. He made some outstanding plays and some outstanding throws. There is no doubt about it. And he did some really, really sketchy stuff too. Overall, for the first game on the road against that defense, you're kind of going, he didn't fall completely apart. And he was able to make a few plays when he needed help, no doubt about it. But when they gave it to him, he could kind of step it up. So at least there was that positive. And again, he managed to pull it together for 7 plays on that 2 minute drive, and that's our only touch. It's our only touchdown we've had in 2 weeks. So he did throw an interception on fourth down on a play that I felt basically was just not on the right track from the get go. But had to avoid some pressure. Just trying to force the ball in there, I think. But he threw it. He has to own the interception. I mean, that's just the way the NFL works. And some of it likely is going to fall on him, but the line didn't necessarily do him any favors on that play either. And his attempt to force the ball in there still was not even close to being anywhere near where the receiver could catch it, even with the pressure he was taking at the time. It's just one of those things. You understand when it doesn't work, but you also acknowledge at the same time the NFL and quarterbacks, for better or worse, are expected to make that play more times than not, no matter what the circumstances are, because you needed it made. Now, pass catchers, this is the one mind-boggling thing that I don't know if there's even really an answer to, other than It's just the way our season's going. But for weeks, we were watching them drop balls that weren't perfectly put in there, but they were catchable and struggling to catch them. And that's not counting the legitimate drops of balls that should have been caught 100%. So we watched that struggle go on for a couple of weeks. Then all of a sudden, you get Chuck in there for whatever reason. He threw some balls that I would have bet money were uncatchable, and we had guys able to catch them. He drilled one into Cooks on a missed rub route, is actually what it was. Cooks almost ends up being double teamed. I don't know how that ball didn't get picked, much less Cooks was able to make a contested catch. And I believe picked up a first down on that play. Like, where's that coming from? And that would be one of the ill-advised throws that Chuck probably shouldn't have made to begin with, because the rub pick play did not work in that circumstance. He had one to Rashid along the sideline that Rashid had to do a little contortion act to get to the ball, catch it, and be able to stay in bounds. He did it. You know, um, Johnson on the second play, the 2 minute drill. I mean, that ball was he was open for the check down. That's the way they had to go. Could have laid it in on him a lot easier than what he did. Johnson has to jump and kind of turn and twist a bit to snag that ball with no chance of yards after the catch that I don't think he'd have had anyway. But it felt like on lesser balls, and every pass catcher we had, I don't care if he's a wide receiver, tight end, or a running back, all had certain times in the previous 8 weeks where that came up and happened. And we still had drops. I know one from a running back and one from a tight end in that game that the on balls that should have been caught. So it's still circling around there, but our inability to make kind of tough catches, and we didn't do it. And we're said many times, look, it's the NFL. You got to help your quarterback out. You got to make those catches. Couldn't do it for weeks or not enough to make a difference. All of a sudden in this game, we're catching balls that it just doesn't make any sense to me. But it is what it is. So overall, when you stack all that together, you just didn't offset anything with enough good plays back to back on either side of the ball. And beating a dead horse, I know I am with the 2 minute drill. That was the one time we really did it. We had the two big completions to Olave and Shaheed in the fourth quarter, got us down in the red zone. And then we just kind of fell apart from that point and get nothing out of that drive after two big plays to open it up. Over 50 yards on two pass plays. That's kind of that one drive, kind of how our whole day went, except for 54 seconds at the end of the first half. So, real quick, reactions to the trade deadline. The two trades we made earlier today, way earlier today. Full disclosure, this video should have been out hours ago. Had a wee bit of a problem in a reshoot. It's about midnight right now. I'm getting it done so you can get it first thing tomorrow morning. So I didn't have a lot of time to dive deep into it. Um, we can do that on the next video. I think that's going to be a big part of the conversation when we get ready for Carolina's fact. Some guys are gonna have to step up and fill some shoes from two players we traded. Shaheed, long been rumored, goes for a 4 and a 5. We initially traded a 4 and a 6 to get Valet, who's likely going to be a starter now, and see what he's got. So ultimately, you kind of traded the two for each other and swapped the 6 and a 5 is really what it boiled down to. I had made a mistake in a video. I believe I mentioned this after the game or at some point talking about this because over the weekend, I thought I read a tweet from Nick Underhill that said an AFC team had called and offered a third round for Shaheed. So I had to go back and look at it when I saw it was for 4 and a 5 and he was going to Seattle. And then I realized what he was saying was in the tweet, the Saints apparently had gotten contacted by an AFC team, and the Saints were asking for a third round. So this was prior to Sunday's game, and apparently they didn't get it because Shaheed played in it. Jacoby Myers, I know, was traded earlier in the day to the Jaguars. for the 4 and the 6. So the market's kind of set at that point. If you couldn't get somebody that was interested prior to today to take him for a third, and then you come out and the first receiver traded today goes for 4 and a 6. Overall, and this is with Penning, who was traded for a 6th-round pick in 2027. You moved on from 2 expiring contracts. They were going to be free agents at the end of the year. So you're going to get to clean up their dead money a little bit earlier, and that's going to help somewhat. Um, I take it Olave's still here, and there was heavy interest apparently from Buffalo. Saw that a couple of times today, and that the Saints apparently weren't interested in trading him. So I'm hoping that means they've all but got the extension for him worked out, because that's what it boiled down to. Is at best you could only keep one. Which one were you going to keep? And their guy was Olave. So I think that's how it played out. And you had to get some value from Rashid Shaheed. Last thing is not to take the deep dive into compensatory picks, because it's some really weird formula that I don't know if anybody truly understands, that they talk about. They explain it every draft cycle. And so I'll listen to it then and I immediately forget about it. So I don't know why, but they were projecting that had Shaheed left in free agency, we would have gotten a 4th-round compensatory pick for it. So basically, you traded him for a 5th, is what it boils down to. But you still got, because you apparently you were going to get the 4th round anyway, but you pick up an extra 5th in the process. At this point, we need to add draft capital. We need younger players on rookie deals. Um, we need to finish fixing the cap. We've made huge strides the last 2 seasons. We're almost there. We should be clear by 2027. And I think logically, there's a couple more players on this team that I would wonder if anybody was interested in, and if they were we willing to deal? So I think more of that exploration is going to come, like I said, in the next video, because hopefully over the next few days, normally it starts coming out who called looking for what was he asking, what was the sticking point, for whatever it's worth. Generally, there's some truth and all that stuff, but you never quite know how much. But I think when you see those kind of things, you kind of piece together at least some useful information. So hopefully that'll come out, and then Friday we can take a much deeper dive in this. But so yeah, for the most part, you had to sell for 5 picks wasn't going to fix anything in 2026. 7, 8 if we keep the compensatory for Paulson and Debo, that 4th rounder, we'd have 8 picks. You have a chance to actually meaningfully make some more roster changes that after Sunday's game, after the Tampa game before that, and even the Chicago game, those last 3, this roster is in bad shape. And they started overhauling it. Not nearly enough. Got to continue the trend. They needed to be sellers. I'm just hoping there wasn't more players they could have sold that probably should have been traded away to get draft picks. But we'll see in the next few days if any of that stuff comes out. That's it for today. Tonight or early tomorrow morning. I'm not even sure what time it is right now. So I think overall, um, halfway through the season, it's going to be a long back half. Trade deadline. Other teams were very active, one of which is the Jets, who, to show you the shape of our roster, we couldn't get anybody off of it and get a day 2 pick. They're rebuilding, giving up 2 assets where they made a nice haul of first rounders and other picks. So, 2 things on that is we have to rebuild our roster to the point where when we want to rebuild, we've got enough assets people want that you can do something like that. That's eye opening and just kind of sad that we're at that point. But That's why trading Shaheed is painful, and it's supposed to be painful. He's a guy you wish you could keep, but circumstances didn't allow it. And the whole reason was the double, tripling, quadrupling down that you did the last 4 years that created this whole mess that it looks like it's gonna take a little time to clean it all up. We'll just have to stick it out till then, see what happens. And look forward to seeing some of the younger players play. Maybe we got some diamond in the roughs in there, and they'll get more opportunity, and we can find them. So, like what you saw, please go ahead to like, share, subscribe for me. Drop down in the comments. Let me know, you know, if you have any more residual thoughts on the Rams game. I think most of us are just trying to flush it and move on. But like focus on, look, there was one good stretch in there that was really, really, really good. We'll take some hope out of that. Also, trade deadline. Give me your thoughts on that, and then we'll get a little deeper into it for the next video. Should be coming out Friday. So till I see you next time, I'm Tim. Peace out and who dat.